Today, I'm touching on the way of wisdom. Basically, what I'm going to talk about is what does Proverbs teach us about wisdom? What does Proverbs teach us about wisdom? Talking about wisdom, I remember this story. Some of you probably will have heard of it. There was this professor of philosophy, a thinker. He was having coffee with his friends in a cafe. And lo and behold, an angel suddenly appeared in front of him and spoke to him and said, "You have been a good man, a great man, a wise man, and you have blessed many students. And so today I'm going to give you a blessing. You can choose one of these three. You can choose either wealth, wisdom, or beauty. Which would you choose?" Of course, the philosopher, the smart man he is, and trying to impress his friend, he says, "I choose wisdom." And pow! Suddenly the angel disappeared. And then he just stood there. He was quiet for a while. All his friends were around him, looking at him, wondering what has happened. Then one of the friends asked him, "Can you say something wise, please?" He turned around at the friend. He says, "I should have chosen the money." The way of wisdom. I came across some of these quotes from the internet, which I find quite amusing. He says, "Some folks are wise and some otherwise." Some folks are wise, some otherwise. Another says this, "I just finally discovered what's wrong with my brain. I finally discovered what's wrong with my brain. On the left side, there is nothing right. And on the right side, there is nothing left." Another says this, "Don't be stupid. It might make you famous." Oh. Another put it this way, "Maybe if we tell people the brain is an app, they will start using it." Wow. And then the wisdom of children. A boy says, "When your dad is mad and asks you, 'Do I look stupid?' don't answer him." Another says, "When your mom is mad at your dad, don't let her brush your hair." And another says, "Never tell your mom her diet is not working." The way you laugh is like as if you have done it. All right? I'm just a bit worried. So what does Proverbs teach us about wisdom? Three things I want to cover. The definition of wisdom, the need for wisdom, the way to wisdom. What is wisdom in a biblical sense, and why we need wisdom, and then some practical applications on how we can gain wisdom. Well, first, the definition of wisdom. What is wisdom? Well, three things about wisdom. First, in the biblical sense, especially in the Old Testament, since I'm talking about Proverbs, so I am coming from the Old Testament perspective, wisdom describes skillful people, skilled artisans, example, weavers, architects, and goldsmiths. So if you are skillful, you are a talented person in the area of the arts. If you are an artist, you are considered a wise person. A brother among us today, I heard, is going to give me a painting. In my room, there's a painting from a very dear brother, and he's very good in his painting. So he is a wise person in that sense from the Bible's description. And wisdom also is considered keen insight into life and ways of dealing with its problem. The Hebrew word is chokmah, and it's usually applied. And one example that's applied is the life of Solomon. He's a wise man. He has keen insight on problems in life, and he is able to apply this into his life. So I like what Charles Spurgeon once said. He said, "Wisdom is the right use of knowledge. To know is not to be wise. Many men now know a great deal, and all are the greater fools for it. There is no fool so great as a knowing fool. You know, I like that phrase, a knowing fool. But to know how to use knowledge is to have wisdom. Wisdom is a way of thinking and conduct that is, it's not just about the applying of knowledge, but in the biblical sense, it is an applying of knowledge that is orderly, socially sensitive, and morally upright. And that is what makes it different from the wisdom of this world. Right? There are many wise sayings. There are many wise sayings and many wise people. But the wisdom of the world is different in this sense. If there is a line that can be drawn, it is that the wisdom of God will move towards moral uprightness. It will move towards godly values. Proverbs 1:7, that's why it says, and this was what's touched more in detail by Pastor Yong Heng. Last week, if you want to hear about the message, you can go to our website. It says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. So it's about the fear of the Lord. It is about a life that is godly. So in this sense, godliness is wisdom, and wisdom is about godliness. And this is what biblical wisdom is all about. And I like what Larry Lear once said. He says, wisdom is the God-given ability to perceive the true nature of a matter. And that's one part of it. It's about discernment. And then the second part is not just knowing about the truth of a matter, but to implement the will of God. Say me, the will of God. Is to implement the will of God in that matter. So it's not just about an understanding or a discernment of a problem in your life today or my life today. It is about how to implement the will of God into this matter. If I am a pastor, I am counseling a couple, and I am able to discern the miscommunication that is taking place, that it can be a root issue of the marriage problem. But in my proposal or my suggestion for a solution to that matter, I must prayerfully consider solutions that are in alignment to God's will. And if it doesn't align to God's will, it's not wisdom at all. So this is what applying godly wisdom is all about. An example of a person who may be smart but not wise. There was this scientist by the name of William Anderson. He was acknowledged as one of the pioneers of genetic therapy. But he was caught and convicted of child molestation charges. Obviously a very smart man, but not this wise. And he was actually imprisoned 14 years for what he did. And one of his attorneys says, after the conviction, he says nothing about a 176 IQ means you have good judgment. And 176 is pretty high. To be in Mensa, you only need to be between 130 to 140 points. So he's obviously a smart man, but from the biblical sense, he is not a wise man. He may be able to apply his knowledge in scientific research and applications, but there was nothing in this decision that he made in this particular case that was morally upright. And so is considered, he is a smart man. He probably is a man who has contributed much to the medical world. But from God's perspective, he is not a wise man. So this is where we are going from when we are talking about wisdom today. So it's not just wisdom on how to solve your life's problem, but it is about wisdom solving life's problems God's way. Can I hear amen from God's people? solving life's problem God's way. This is what wisdom, if there is a definition, what wisdom is about. Secondly, why do we need this kind of wisdom? Why do we need a wisdom that will not only help us solve problems, but solve problems in God's way? Well, a few reasons. One is this: because of our fallen nature. Because we are human beings. We are born with a fallen nature. And from the perspective of the mind, Proverbs raise up three categories of people. In Proverbs 1:22, the writer says, "How long, O naive ones, will you love being simple-minded? And scoffers delight themselves in scoffing, and fools hate knowledge." Three groups of people highlighted in the book of Proverbs that suggest that they are not wise. So the fool, one is the fool, and in the sense of this word, the context of what he's saying, the fool is one who is dense, who is sluggish, who is careless, and who is self-satisfied. The fool is not necessarily a person without intelligence. A fool is not necessary in the biblical sense someone who cannot exercise his faculty of thinking, or is just so-called what we call stupid. But in the biblical sense, when God says this person is a fool, is a person who is a lazy person. A lazy person, in the biblical sense, is a foolish person. I remember reading about this article. It happened in Spain, of this shepherd who overslept, and then all his sheep, 1,300 sheep he had, he ran into a city and create havoc. And the police had to come and to bring the sheep back to where the shepherd is. And they said when they brought the sheep back there, the shepherd was still sleeping. Wow. So I'm not sure we want to consider him a fool, but I'm sure he's going to get it from the police. All right. The second category of people that are considered unwise in the Bible are the simple people. And these we will probably associate even better, one who believes everything and everybody and lacks discernment. And Proverbs highlight this, and I think it's not just evident in the days of the Old Testament. I think this also applies today when we look around us, when we think about things that are happening around us, and sometimes when we ourselves are part of it, we sometimes just lack discernment. I think I want to just take this moment to highlight that there are a lot of things out there that are fake. So of course I'm not for Malaysia's anti-fake news. I think that is a little bit too much. The motive of that was not right. But the reality of fake news is there. There are many things that are fake out there, but that is only one part of the problem. The second problem is that people believe the fake news and they forward the bad news. And that is even a bigger problem. And this is where one of the things I've been emphasizing over and over again over the pulpit is, brothers and sisters, if you are a Christian, don't just forward any messages, news, or videos that come to your handphone and you just forward because it is exciting, because it is new, because it is juicy gossip. You just send because you just think that, oh, you found something new. You know, it's like, oh, revelation to you. Lo and behold, let me share this. Before you share this, make sure it is true. Make sure it is true. Otherwise, don't forward it. And there are many websites in online that you can check out the content of your news, whether it's fake or false. I think it is wisdom, before you forward, to check it out first. Especially the juiciest news that you get are the one that usually is fake. An example of fake things in the world. One is a very interesting case. Just about a month ago, this video went viral. This guy video and took shots of a so-called zebra in a zoo in Cairo, Egypt. And he says it's obviously a painted donkey. And why he says it's a painted donkey? It's because zebra don't have such long ears. If you really go and look at a picture of a zebra, it is round, not short ears. But these are the ears of a donkey. And they painted it. And of course, the zoo denied it. So we don't know how the case is developing. But this is not the first time. In Gaza, I also read that they literally painted donkeys to zebras because they could not get the real zebra through because Israel had a blockade. So the zoo cannot get the animals. So they have to paint it white and black. Another reason why they know it was fake, because the paint was smeared here. Of course, the picture is not very clear. So they paint, then the paint went off, all right? So this is one of those humorous cases of fake things in the world, and we should be careful. And that is why if you have an online account with public bank, the moment you enter, they will ask you to be careful of phone scams. The people who are out there trying their best to scam you. And so Christians, we need to walk in wisdom. And we cannot be simple-minded. Say with me, I'm very complicated. Okay, so in this sense, be complicated a bit, yeah? Okay. And of course, another warning is against the scorner. He is probably the one who is smart. He is not simple-minded. He is hardworking, but he is proud. He is one who mocks at God's wisdom and thinks he knows everything. So he, all right. God speaks to him. He look at the Bible, the teaching. He lift his nose up. Scorners. Again, I came across this interesting news about a research being done in Arizona State University some time ago. They researched men and women, and they found out that men tend to overestimate their intelligence. On the average, they found out that men think that they are smarter than 66% of their classmates. So they are the top 34, so to speak. They are the top ones. In terms of their intelligence, in terms of their credentials, in terms of their achievements, they think they are smarter than everyone else, 66%. For ladies, a bit more humble, they only think that they are smarter than 33% of their class. So, today in this church, how many men of you think that you are smarter than 66% of the members in this church? Well, names start coming up already. Okay. So the scorners is not considered wise. Say with me, be humble. Humility is wisdom. So we are talking about wisdom. We are talking about the mind. And I like what C.S. Lewis says today. Because sometimes we think spirituality, when you talk about faith, then you can throw your brains out. Faith in the heart means brain out of the window. And that's not true. If we look at Proverbs, we look at the challenge to the readers to get and seek wisdom. There is no denial that you and I need to use our brain. Say with me, I have a brain. And it's a God-given brain. It's not implanted to you in the hospital. And God gave everything for a purpose, whether we acknowledge it or not. So C.S. Lewis says this: God is no fonder of intellectual slackers. It's not something that he prefers than of any other slackers. If you are thinking of becoming a Christian, I warn you that you are embarking on something which is going to take the whole of you, brains and all. Say me, brains and all. So today, the message of God is that he not only wants your heart, he wants your brains. Say me, God wants my brains. God wants you. He's not going to just redeem your soul. He wants to redeem your thinking. He wants to redeem the way you perceive matters. He wants to redeem the whole of you. So the thought life is important. Secondly, wisdom is required not only because of our fallen nature, but because man can be easily influenced by others, and especially with regards to sin. It's easier to influence someone to sin than to influence someone to holiness. Let me just maybe demonstrate. Tzu Yang, come. Now you stand down here. I ask you, come. Is it easier for me to pull him up? You're not going to step. Is it easy for me to pull him up? He's not going to do anything. Or is it easier for him to pull me down? No, the point gets through already. Okay. So this is the human nature. Whether we like it or not, it's easier because of that sinful nature. It's easier for us to be influenced towards sinful behavior, even though you may be a Christian. That's why Proverbs says, "My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent." As a child of God, Henry Nouwen once said, you need to be prudent. Say me, be prudent. We need to be prudent. You cannot simply walk around in this world as if nothing and no one can harm you. You remain extremely vulnerable. Sometimes we sing about the protection and pray and preach about the protection of God to the point that we think that we can live life recklessly, foolishly. And that's not what it's meant to be. We need to understand that the same passions that make you love, Henry Nouwen says, God let me repeat again. The same passions that make you love God may be used by the powers of evil. And so we must be careful. We must be careful. We can be easily influenced by others. Just as we are influenced for good, we can be influenced for evil as well. In this point, maybe I just want to highlight this to some of the parents here, and especially the younger parents. We all know research over and over again has shown that early exposure to TV or any forms of media violence will predict aggression in adulthood. Means watch too many angry bird will become angry man. All right? Angry bird will become angry woman. All right? So too much of this, it happens. And another study says, in America, they did this study. In America, in the context of America, I don't know about Malaysia or Singapore, media exposes children to 15,330 violent acts a year on the average. So imagine the input. So the question here today, parents, is what are you allowing your children to watch? I am all for allowing room for our children to explore. but there must be boundaries. Say me, boundaries. There must be boundaries. Boundaries are meant to help us if we set it at the right place and the right kind of boundaries. Take a fish. Imagine a fish in a bowl of water. If you take the fish and the bowl is that boundary that contains the water that keeps the fish alive. But if you take everything, you say, I want the fish to be free. Take it out of the water. Put it on the table. Free from water, free from boundaries of the aquarium, that fish will die. So boundaries are important, just like a fish bowl is important to a fish, because you need the bowl to contain the water which will sustain the life of the fish. We need the laws of God. We need some boundaries in our everyday life, because it is the aquarium, it is the fish bowl that will contain elements that will help us to be alive. It's the same thing for your children. Some do's and don'ts are necessary. A borderless upbringing may not be necessarily good. Imagine you are given a garden, a beautiful garden with all flowers, and the owner says, this is for you. This is for you. And you receive that garden, you say thank you. Such a beautiful garden. You took the garden, but you don't take care of it. 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, you don't bother. You say, I want the garden to thrive. The garden just be itself. Be what it's supposed to be. God created all these plants. Let the plants do what they want. Let nature take its course. Imagine 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now, what will happen to that garden of yours? You can be very sure you'll be overrun by weeds. We are living in a fallen world. We have not reached Eden or heaven yet. So there are weeds all around. And if we don't be careful, if we don't take steps to protect the garden from being sold by weeds, the seeds of weeds, or when there are weeds happening, we don't take effort to pull out the weeds. We don't have an SOP in place that when I see weeds, what must I do? Your garden is going to be overgrown and it's not going to be beautiful anymore. We want to see beautiful life. We want to see our life beautiful. We want to see our children's life beautiful. We must have boundaries. Say me, boundaries. Not here to tell you what kind of boundary or where the boundaries will. Let the wisdom of God be with you. My point is that you need to have boundaries. And I think it's not just apply. It doesn't just apply to the family and to young parents. I think it applies to all of us here. I have to have boundaries in my life. I cannot just do what I like, because I think I will be on the road to destruction if I just do what I like. Today, I wake up this morning. I don't feel like preaching today. I don't feel like going to church or praise. So I just stay home and sleep. Then Tzu Yang will have to preach. So, influences, we need to take care. Thirdly, why wisdom is required is because wisdom pays. There are benefits in wisdom. Wisdom rewards. Proverbs 9:12 says, the wise person is rewarded by wisdom. But whoever makes fun of wisdom will suffer for it. It pays to be wise. It pays to be godly. It pays to have the fear of the Lord, which is the beginning of wisdom. How does it pay? One, perception. Proverbs 2:9 says, then when you have wisdom, then you will understand. Say me, understand. Then you will understand what is honest, what is fair, what is just, and what is the good, and what is the right thing to do. When you and I have the fear of the Lord, when you and I have wisdom, we will know what is the right thing to do. We will be able to differentiate the right from the wrong. We will be able to differentiate the good from the bad, or the best from the good, or the better. We will have that wisdom when we have the fear of the Lord. We will have peace. Proverbs 3:17 says, her ways are pleasant ways, and all her paths are peace. A man who is ungodly will surely feel guilty. And when there's guilt in the heart, there will be no peace in the heart. A man who is ungodly will have fears in his heart. And when your heart is fearful, there is no peace. And that is why wisdom, as in the fear of the Lord, brings peace. It pays. It pays when I have the fear of the Lord in my life, when I walk in the ways of God, by the grace of God, by the power of the Holy Spirit. I seek towards that direction, I receive the peace of God. And thirdly, the protection that wisdom gives. Proverbs 4:6 says, do not forsake her, do not forsake wisdom, and she will guard. Say me, guard. She will guard you, she will, and love her, love wisdom, and she will watch over you. So, love the Rela guards downstairs, and they will guard over your cars. No, that's not the point. Protection, peace, perception, many other things, confidence, poise, all these are the blessings of wisdom. Let me close this second point with this comparison of so-called maybe nature's expression of foolishness and man's expression of wisdom. I read this article, very interesting article, about corals. They were doing some research to find out why corals are dying so much in the ocean. And they found out that one of the causes of corals dying is because they love to eat plastics. If I throw this chair to them, it is a wedding dinner for them, I think. It is an anniversary celebration lunch for them. It is like, going to a seafood restaurant. Corals, they like to eat plastics, and they choose plastics over other things. It seems plastics taste good to them, and not just corals, planktons as well. Well, it seems they have a good reason, because corals have no brains. And so they cannot think, they cannot discern, they cannot compare. And so they'll just take what they feel is nice and good. And it seems plastic tastes good for them for some reason. Don't know why, but it tastes good. So they eat. So to me, what are we eating? In my application part there, later on, we'll talk a little bit more of that. What are we basing our decisions on? It is just on feelings alone, or is on wisdom? I like it may not be what is good for me. Compared to that, we talk about the Machens, a group of sea gypsies living in the west of Thailand, somewhere near Phuket Island. And years ago, when the tsunami happened on 26 December, one day after Christmas, after that catastrophe, it was recorded more than 200,000 people lost their life. 200,000 people died just like that because of that, all over the world when they compiled the numbers. And in Phuket, more than 4,000, there's a lot of people, 4,000 in Phuket, more than that, were lost. Lives lost or they are missing until today. But this particular group of sea gypsies was at the same place in Phuket, along that beach, along the coastal highway. None of them died. Why? Because before the tsunami happened, they were perceptive enough to see that things are no longer the same. They begin to notice that the birds have stopped singing. They begin to notice that the elephants are moving inland. And they observe just the day before, the water just suddenly from the sea just receded all the way down. And when they saw that, according to one reporter, all of them wept and cried because they knew something very bad is going to happen. And because of that, they immediately moved inland, and because of that, they were safe. It is wisdom, it is perception that protected them. So, brothers and sisters, let us be wise. Wisdom protects you. Wisdom protects you. So, if this is it, then how should I respond to this sermon today? I like to use Proverbs 4, 20 to 27, an outline given by Warren Wiersbe, which I find very practical and very helpful. And I think very needful for all of us here to think about. Perhaps for some of you, you are being wise, you have always valued wisdom. This will be an encouragement to you that you are on the right track. But for some of us who are a little bit relaxed with life, maybe this should be the foundation of your future. 5 questions to ask based on Proverbs 4 on that passage. First question is, what comes into my ears? Proverbs 4:20 says, "My son, give attention to my words. Incline your ear to my sayings." Means pay attention to the advice of people, good advice from good people that are coming your way. Today, maybe some of you here have been hearing some advice, but you are being defensive about it for some reason. Maybe God is telling you, take this advice because you know it is good and you know this advice is being given to you by good-hearted people. Must learn to be teachable. Say me, be teachable. A teachable person is a wise person. Let me tell you a story of a man, a negative example of someone who refused to take advice but pay with a heavy price. This is the story of David Bloom. He was the reporter covering the Iraqi war. Ironically, he didn't die from any bullets or bomb explosion. He died from a medical condition. And according to this article, doctors have already told him that he had this condition called DVT, and they asked him to seek treatment, but he refused. And he just took painkillers. And pretty soon, he actually died of a blood clot or a pulmonary embolism. Died just like that because of refusing to take good advices. Today, how many of us here, we are bearing the consequence because we refuse good advice. We refuse good advice given to us. Maybe God is telling you, take the advice. This story of Norah Jones, Grammy Award winner 9 times, a jazz singer, she says this, if I did anything that my mom didn't think was okay, they asked her how you can remain a Christian, how you can still keep your faith. And they asked her, and then she said this, if I did anything that my mom didn't think was okay, she's gonna tell me before anyone else even knows about it. She's well and fine simply because she's willing to take advice. Say me, I'm willing to take advice. Let's be willing to take advice. Let's be willing, be open to constructive criticism from people. Someone put this, half of being smart is knowing what you are dumb about. We are not as smart as we think we are. We like to think so, but we are not there. Secondly, besides what comes into my ears, what is within my heart? Proverbs 4:23 says, watch over your heart with all diligence, for from it flows the springs of life. Heart, treasure, almost synonymous. Where your heart is, your treasure is. Where your treasure is, your heart is. It's synonymous. And I read this article as well about the California fire last year. Happened twice, October, December. More than 40 people lost their lives. And it seems the cost of that wildfire in California the damage runs up to 18 billion US dollars. It was really a bad one. And after that, an article came out on what you will take. If you have 20 minutes to pack, what do people take? They try to find out what do people take because they want to know actually what matters to people. Because if you have 20 minutes, imagine your house is going to be destroyed. It's going to be burned down. Today, just imagine that. If my house is going to be burned down in 20 minutes, what is one thing or two things that I will take? What are the things that I will take from my house? So they found out. One violinist, of course, took his violin. He studied makan. I don't know Zi Yang will take who. Or no, take what, not take who. Okay. Know who to take. The who will know how to take themselves, right? You take what, all right? Yeah. I don't know what. What will you take, Zi Yang? Well, you have to think. Better think now, because at that time you only got 20 minutes. So the violinist took the violin. A lady who is going to get married took her bridal gown. Everything she left behind, she just took the bridal gown. And then an old lady, because she cannot walk, of course, took her walking stick. But then she had time. She took other things, but then she forgot to take her husband's thyroid medication. So it became an issue. So obviously the husband is not as important as the walking stick. All right? Yeah. No. But there's one tragedy that they found out. It was this guy, Michael Dornbeck. He died in the fire. And the reason he died was this. Because he refused to leave his truck there. It was a new truck. He just bought it. And he says, I'm not leaving with my truck. And so he stayed with the truck and he burned to death with the truck. That truck was his heart. That truck was his treasure. And that truck was his distraction. wisdom is about what you choose to value in your life. Choose carefully, value what God values, and that is true wisdom. What is upon my lips? Proverbs 4:24 says, put away from you a deceitful mouth and put devious speech from you. I won't elaborate much more than this. You want to hear more, can go to the website, listen to my sermon, not Sermon on the Mount, but Sermon on the Mouth. Someone says this, wise men talk because they have something to say, fools because they have to say something. Plato says this. So say with me, be wise. I think it's in the Bible, it says even if the fool keeps quiet, he's considered wise. So talk less. What is before my eyes? Proverbs 4:25. Let your eyes look directly ahead of you. Let your gaze be fixed straight in front of you. He's saying stay focused. Say me, stay focused. You have to stay focused and not be distracted. Wisdom is about staying focused on what God wants to do in my life, through my life. It's about staying focused on living my life for the Lord. It's about staying focused on my commitment to the Lord. It's about staying focused on my relationship with the Lord. It's about staying focused to live a life that will impact others for the Lord. It's about staying focused. Staying focused. In this world, there are so many distractions, so many things crying out for our attention. But Proverbs says, let your eyes look directly ahead. So many voices. Today, how many voices are calling to you right now? The voice of tiredness. Sleep lah. Pastor cannot see you while he's preaching one lah. The voice of your stomach is calling you. What shall you eat? Think. Google now. Best food. Best hawker food in Johor, Bahru. Yeah. What are you looking at? We can be so easily distracted. So many things can distract us. Again, I came across this story, and this is a true reporting. And this city, on its lamppost, they cover it with airbags on the lamppost because they found out that 40% of their accidents are pedestrians banging into lampposts because they were looking at the handphone. Oh, Sharon is calling up some names. I better don't repeat the name. Should we put airbags in the church columns here? Yes, huh? Oh, it's in Austria. And it seems, there's another news that says in Hawaii, in Honolulu, they have a law that you are not supposed to look at your handphone while not driving but walking. Is that serious? Huh? Is that serious? How many of you have bumped into a lamppost or someone while reading your handphone? Don't put up your hand. All right. So there are many things that can distract us. And if you are seeking for wisdom, keep your eyes focused. Stay focused, travel light. One of our. And then what is beyond my path, finally? Proverbs 4:26-27 says, watch the path of your feet and all your ways will be established. Do not turn to the right nor to the left. Turn your foot from evil. Watch the path of your feet because where you walk is where you end. Where you walk is where you end. Your destination tomorrow is determined by your steps today. So watch your steps. Think long term. Maybe let me say this, let your destination define how you walk or where you walk today. What is your end game? What is the bottom line for you in life? What is life's bottom line for you? Let that be something, your long-term goals. Say me, long-term goals. One of the most successful companies is Amazon.com. And the founder, Jeff Bezos, will write a letter every year to his shareholders. And one of the things that is emphasized to them is that Amazon focus on long-term goals. They are not going to be distracted by short-term gains. This is what he says. Jeff says, we will continue to make investment decisions in light of long-term market leadership considerations rather than short-term profitability considerations or short-term Wall Street reactions. So how are you approaching your life? As you make decisions, some of you are making decisions today. Is it long-term considerations or short-term considerations, or it is a reaction to the circumstances that is happening around you, and you just give in to what is happening around you? Perhaps God is saying to you today, think long-term. Think of the goals that I have for you. Think of the time that I revealed to you my plans and my purposes that are not meant to harm you but to prosper you. Think of the vision that I have given to you. Not at what is right now happening around you. What is your long-term vision? Some of you have already a long-term vision, but maybe because of present circumstances, you are being distracted. Maybe God today is telling you, go back to your first love. Remember that vision that I've given you. Maybe some of you have, but because of present circumstances, that is stressing you to the limit, and you are making decisions that are based not on responses but on reactions. You are not responding to it in a godly manner. You are reacting to it in a very emotional manner. And you are starting to make decisions that will affect, that may solve the long-term, the short-term considerations, but not the long-term considerations. That may even deflect you, put you off tangent to where you're supposed to go. So Proverbs tell us to watch our path where we go. Let me close with this story of this fish. It's not a story, it's the truth. It is about this fish. It's called a four-eyed fish. Do you know there is a fish called a four-eyed fish? Scientifically, it's called Anableps. Anableps is found in South America. It doesn't have four eyes, actually have two eyes, but each eye is divided to two compartments. One to see out of water, one to see underwater. And so this very particular fish is one of the unique fishes in the world that can see things above water, things below water. And if there's an illustration for wisdom and walking in wisdom and being a white Christian, I think we all ought to be like the four-eyed fish. We need to see things spiritually. We need to discern things spiritually. We need to be able also to see things and observe things physically. We need to see beyond what we see. The challenge is to discern, to see beyond what the physical eyes see. Because there are a lot of things that may be happening between the lines. So, in this sense, wisdom advises to sometimes look between the lines. I'm not here asking you to micromanage every situation in your life. But it pays to be wise, especially when it comes to major decisions in your life. We are not just to rush into it because you just want to do things fast, so you do it. We are not to just do it because we are emotionally touched. Make a decision just based on emotions. There are times we need to think through. As I invite Tzu Yang to come, and later we're going to go to communion and the team to come, and they'll lead us into a time of communion. Let me just close with this scripture. Luke 2:52. And it says, Jesus kept increasing in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. Christ grew, not just physically, not just grow spiritually in his walk with God, but he grew in wisdom. What more? We, the followers of Christ, we ought to grow in wisdom every day as well. Christ-likeness, we all agree. We are to work towards Christ-likeness. We all believe that the Holy Spirit is working in our lives, moving us towards Christ-likeness, and is always closely associated with character, with maturity, with a holy lifestyle. But today, may I suggest to you, it also involves wisdom. A Christ-like believer is a wise believer. A Christian, a growing Christian, is one who grows in wisdom.